Showing on this episode of Law Weekly, a chat with the chairman body of trustees of the Nigerian Bar Association, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olisa Agbakoba. I have his views on the establishment of a new professional association for lawyers, the Law Society of Nigeria, LSN. Also showing on the program, reactions from more lawyers on the LSN, plus a recap of the top trending legal stories in the news. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Shola Shuyeli. The legal community in Nigeria recently woke up to the news of the establishment of a new professional association for lawyers called Law Society of Nigeria, LSN. On its Twitter page at Law Society of Nigeria, the association describes itself as an alternative for change in matters that have been long ignored in the legal profession, prominent of which are premium on members' welfare and an open and transparent system in choosing leaders of the profession at the national level. In fact, its promoters describe the association as a new sheriff in town. But barely hours after the LSN went to town, controversy trailed the news of its emergence. One of the earliest reactions came from the convener and the founding secretary of the LSN, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Richard Omar Ahonarogo, who issued a disclaimer to the statement of the purported pro-tem national executives of the society. The Learned Silk admitted that he held a meeting with one of the promoters of the Law Society of Nigeria on the 6th of October in Lagos, where the appeal for the commencement of full activities of the LSN was tabled, considered, and deferred for further consultations. He also disclosed that the purported executives of the LSN, as announced, are not known to the body, and he promptly asked all Nigerian lawyers to disregard their hasty announcement. Then followed a back and forth between the two parties, at the end of which they agreed to a ceasefire pending another meeting. The leadership of the Nigerian Bar Association has kept mum over the issue, but the president, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Yakubu Mekiao, told Law Weekly that he's consulting with other bar leaders on the issue and the association will come out with a statement after consultations. The chairman of the body of trustees of the NBA, former president of the bar, Dr. Olisa Agbakoba, has however made some comments on the issue.
It's important to stress that I speak to you today with a bit of caution because I've been in touch with the president of the bar and he's in Miami attending the IBA, and I needed to call the board of trustees.
Of which you're chairman.
Of which I chair, but I thought that given the extraordinary nature of what has happened, I could make a preliminary, statement, which is what I'm proceeding to do. So this Law Society of Nigeria has a history, which is when about IBB was harassing the NBA.
That's former president of Nigeria.
Former president of Nigeria. So the NBA went into sort of hibernation. So it was felt there was a need to create an alternative pending when NBA came back. So that was the origin of the Law Society of Nigeria. Now when the NBA returned, everybody forgot that we had registered the Law Society of Nigeria. So
as far back as 1994.
1994. So it's a very old registration. As to whether there can be two bodies, unless the law is changed. And I have nothing to against having 10 associations. Nothing. I mean, the more the merrier. So if the Law Society of Nigeria wants to be an alternative, as they call themselves, they're welcome. But the law as it stands today, constitutionally, it is ingrained in the Legal Practitioners Act that to be a practicing lawyer, you must be a member of the Nigerian Bar Association. And the Nigerian Bar Association's footprints are so embedded in all the statutory agencies of government that I don't know what chance the Law Society of Nigeria stands. But due respect to my good friend Kunle, who is the president of
Kunle Ogumba
SAN, who is the president of the
Law Society of
purported society. Pro-tem, purported. Let's see. We'll test the waters to see how far that goes. But as I speak, we, the NBA, restate our position that we are the only ones entitled to be associated as a body called the Nigerian Bar Association, to the exclusion of all others.
I've also heard some lawyers say that when lawyers are called, they are called to the Nigerian Bar, not to the Nigerian Bar Association. That for a long time we've had this automatic assumption that all lawyers are members of the Nigerian Bar Association, and really that's not what the law says. That there is no basis for every lawyer to be a member of the Nigerian Bar Association. That needs to change. That there's really no statute or even constitutional provision recognizing the NBA as the as the regulatory body for lawyers.
Well, I've just told you right now.
Yes.
The Nigerian Bar Association is the only body legitimately authorized to promote a body of lawyers to practice law. Anyone who has a contrary view, there's the High Court of Nigeria.
What statutes are you referencing?
Go to court. Are you a prosecutor? If those who, I'm not going to help anybody. I've just told you what the law says. We are the only ones entitled. So those who have a contrary view are welcome to approach the High Court. If they win, we go to the Court of Appeal. So it's a debate that is going to run, and it's not a new thing. I remember about 6 years ago, such an idea was floated. And I have nothing against actually having 1, 2, 3, or 4 associations around legal issues. There's nothing wrong with it. But right now, I didn't make the law. Right now,
that is what the law says.
In my own respectful view, and I'm not going to start quoting sections and statutes before
we should go and test that
a non-judicial body. So if they want to test it, they're welcome to go to court. I'm not the one to justify myself. They are the ones to prove whether, in fact, they have a right to be associated as the Law Society of Nigeria. But I don't think they are.
One of the justification for this new association,
yes,
which describes itself as the new sheriff in town,
yes,
they say that they are here to change matters that have been ignored in the legal profession.
Right.
Prominent of which are premium on members' welfare and an open and transparent system in choosing leaders of the legal profession at the national level.
Right.
So there is some sort of belief that the association has not been fair to some people, has not been fair in the mode of appointing the leaders of the association. And these are some of the reasons, and even welfare of members, which they cite. These are some of the reasons why they want a parallel body. Such calls and clamor for change. What do you make of them?
Well, we've had an internal revolution. So within the structure of the NBA, we've had this sort of issues arise, and I think it was President Alege who, wisely in my view, democratized the process of being elected or being voted for. So I don't know what else they want. Anyone who is a lawyer, who's paid practicing fees, can, belonging to a branch, take part in the electoral process. You can vote from anywhere in the world. The last vote I did I was in Malta. So it's as open as can be. And in any event, I don't think that's the issue. Let me underline the fact that anyone who wishes to have an association of lawyers is welcome to do so, provided you don't break the Nigerian laws. I hope you know that the Corporate Affairs Commission has denied them registration. So that's already the first challenge. So as we speak, it's an illegal and unlawful association.
But what if they say that, like they've said, they've talked to the trustees of the LSN that was registered as far back as 1994.
Yes.
And it's on that basis
even
for which they are going
convener
forward.
of that one has said that these people are illegal. Richard Ahanorugo, SAN, because he understood the purpose for the creation of the Law Society of Nigeria.
As at that time.
But please, I don't want to give the impression that we are afraid of
anyone.
anyone. If they want to do it and they can do it properly under the law, more than welcome. I don't know that anybody. It will actually make us stronger. So if they want to, form an association that intends to counterbalance the Nigerian Bar Association, so long as it's lawful, they can proceed.
I did a bit of digging up, and I see that some of the promoters of this new move, this Law Society of Nigeria, were some of the people who were not happy about the outcome of the last electoral process.
The very last one?
Yes, the very last. What assurances, if any, can you give them about the process, how we elect our leaders generally?
I can assure that the process is absolutely transparent. And if you lose gallantly. You can't have people complaining about back-end issues or little issues. If you've lost, then you've lost.
But wouldn't it help if we opened up the back end?
It will help.
And let people see what actually goes on?
Absolutely, it will help. But those sorts of complaints, were they not made to our committee?
What did your committee find?
The person who even alleged that the electoral process was not even fairly done didn't have the standing. And he also alleged that the NEC ought to have done a couple of things. Then we asked him, attach evidence of that, because you just can't give us raw evidence without certifying it. You couldn't do that.
But isn't that just a technicality?
It's not a technicality. If you say someone did not attend a meeting consistently to make him disqualified, then you must produce the evidence of it. He who alleges must prove.
In any case, we have a president of the bar. What do you think that he can do to, because this issue keeps fetching. We had this same issue when Olumide Akpata, the former president, assumed office. It's like this issue is always keep coming up again and again.
What I think that can be done is to create an independent electoral body, just like we have in Nigeria, so that the president has no role over it. Because I think the problem seems to relate around the integrity of the electoral process.
Yeah.
So the less the president has a role to play, or rather the executive, the better the electoral process of the NBA will be seen. So if it is clearly seen that the president doesn't influence, even, for instance, the Nigerian president doesn't tell INEC where to go and get ballot papers printed. So those are the sorts of things I mean. So if we can get the electoral process of INEC, of the Nigerian bar, completely separate, insulated from the executive, I think that would help to
give confidence.
Now, with many associations of, for instance, there was something that was created called the, what did he call, Funke Adekoya created something called
Justice Research Program. Project or something.
So is it that the NBA is not doing enough to engage the judicial process so that it can be strengthened, the appointment of judges, how they work, the issue of corruption? So is the NBA the only organ that can do it? Maybe if there were others, then they would add that voice to the entire construct of how the judiciary should work, which is the justification for this justice reform project, which is also the justification for quite a few other bodies that are now not working outside of the NBA, but doing work related to strengthening the process of the judicature. Yeah, it may well be. And as I said, let me be very clear that I have nothing against 20 organizations that, are concerned with the legal profession. But they first have to overcome the hurdle of whether or not they are legally entitled to come in. So the NBA is no longer the repository of, legal people. So you say, we've got to do our best because there are 5 of us and a person can choose where to go. So it may therefore raise the bar. I can see that point.
But personally, do you believe that we need parallel organizations?
I don't care, personally. I'm just saying, if you want to do so, go and do it properly. I can speak on behalf of the president of the NBA when I say that the Law Society of Nigeria is an unlawful and illegal entity because it has been denied registration by the Corporate Affairs Commission.
CAC.
There are a wealth of cases in court, I was just reading one before you came, that keep emphasizing that only the NBA is recognized to admit lawyers. Is that right or wrong? It's not the issue. So when they break down all these decisions and break down all the statutes standing in their way, and they come in, then they're welcome. We'll all compete. But for now, it's just us.
So I want to go back to, how the president and even leaders of...
Which president now?
The
Nigeria
president of the NBA.
The
The president of the bar. And leaders like yourself, former presidents like you, how we can ensure unity. Because, like I said, these issues keep cropping up. And you've talked about setting up an independent body for the lawyers.
Yes.
What else can we do?
What else I think is critical, because when I was NBA president, part of what I was confronted with when I went around campaigning was, why should we be members of the NBA? People say that.
Yes.
What do we get?
Yes.
Nothing.
In fact, a lot of young lawyers are disgruntled that the NBA does nothing for them.
Yes. So those are the gaps So those are the gaps. I think the NBA must be very conscious that in order to have credibility within the bar, so that people say, oh yes, we are members of the NBA, you must make them enthusiastic members, so that you must show what it is that they are getting. They get to pay practice fees, they get to pay branch dues, they get to be surcharged for all kinds of things, dinners, that. So why do I have to do all this? What am I getting? So I think that's something that ought to concern, leaders of the bar. And I think Lumide Bata did quite well there to build up the confidence. So the current president is, of course, engaged with issues that would give confidence, because
he was chairman of the welfare committee.
Absolutely. If there's no confidence in Nigeria, for instance, people will say, why should I pay tax? So if there's no confidence in the NBA, then all these issues we're discussing will generate. But if there's confidence, people are happy, they say, oh, this is the leader of the bar. So it's a challenge that I think we ought to, keep in mind and take very seriously, that if we want to be the only recognized association, then we ought to be doing quite a lot more than we're doing, so that everyone feels satisfied.
Welcome back. Some other lawyers have also been speaking about the development. They shared their views with Law Weekly on how a division of the Lawyers Association might not be the way forward.
The Constitution of Nigeria gives every person, either a lawyer or not, the right to associate. So based on that, yes, they have it. However, from the validity perspective, there is a court decision which says the Nigerian Bar Association is a compulsory legal body for all lawyers. So that raises the question, who will now be the members of this new body? If the court has ruled that the NBA is the legally recognized association. Yes, like I said, it's possible we also have other bodies who are non-MBAs, like you have the Christian Lawyers Association, Classroom, you have the Muslim Lawyers Association. But the truth of it is that, you see, just like Nigeria is going down the cliff, it means the legal profession is going down the cliff. Because the legal profession we met about 35 years ago is not what we have now. We used to be very, very solid. So now we're having a lot of division.
If there is anything that NBA fails to address, and these things are identifiable, then why are they not being sponsored? Why are those things not being brought to the front burner of NBA with a view to changing them through the same process of NBA? NBA has not been the same since its formation. It's a dynamic force. It has emerged from the years past to cater for lawyers' needs and stuff. And lawyers' needs kept changing, and as they kept changing, also the approaches to issues have been changing as well. If anybody therefore feels there is anything that needs to be changed, then my first instinct is to wonder why such change is not being sponsored for within NBA, with the view to strengthening, promoting, and making NBA a better organization than diluting it through formation of another body that seems a bit, at the moment, suspicious to me.
The new Law Society of Nigeria cannot be a parallel association with the Nigeria Bar Association. Nigeria Bar Association is statutorily recognized and is being statutorily being created. And this is what we met when we were coming to the practice about 34 years ago. And it has been like that, and they have been controlling the affairs of the lawyers. But if some people are now feeling that they have the powers to themselves to govern or control the affairs of NBA, and we are now talking about majority. The majority will elect whoever they want. So if you cannot get a bite at that, you cannot, because of that, go and create another body. I know that baby they are just giving birth to is going to die a natural death. We can't go into factions. NBA cannot be factionalized as far as we are concerned.
Of course, we have our issues with NBA. Like I myself, I do have my issues with NBA. That notwithstanding, that does not, the measure of getting a parallel body is not, to my mind, it's not the best way to go. It's not the way forward. We must understand that this is not business. It is a professional body. If it was a business, we'll be talking about the issue of competition and reducing the issue of monopoly. But that's not what we're doing here. I think that if we, try to address the issues. Of course, like I said, I admitted that there are issues in NBA, and those issues have to be addressed from within, and it has to be done by people being sincere. At least for the first time, or for once, we saw a government in Olumide Akpata's regime that was a bit more, proactive. If we have successive leadership building on the things that Olumide Akpata has achieved, I think we can move the NBA forward. The LSN coming as a parallel body, I don't see them addressing those issues. Maybe they should come out with what they want to do and make it more public. Then we can see how that will address our issues.
I think it's an interesting development. An interesting development in the sense that it's something that would, I think it's something that will spur the NBA as a body to also look at, of course, his achievements so far, to look at the givings and misgivings of the NBA as a body, to look at whether there are really disgruntled members who might be clamoring for another parallel body to perhaps meet their yearnings and aspirations. So it's an interesting development, I must say, but legality or otherwise is not something I would want to be hasty or quick to conclude on. But I believe it's a conversation that is out for people to share their thoughts and opinions. So I would wait to keep our fingers crossed and see how it goes, but I do not really think it is healthy for us to begin at this point to bifurcate, the umbrella we come under, because it's very simple. Because, of course, as every human institution, it's fraught with, faults and issues here and there. And I think the best is to come together as professionals to see how best to resolve those issues.
And just before we go, let's do a quick recap of some of the top legal stories we're tracking at the courts.
We begin with the report that Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of indigenous people of Biafra, has appealed the ruling of the Court of Appeal, staying the execution of the judgment discharging him. A statement by IPOB's lead lawyer, Ifeanyi Ejiofor, says the appeal to the Supreme Court became necessary after a thorough review of the ruling and the decision by the lawyers to the effect that it has no foundation in law. At the Court of Appeal, the Abuja Division has dismissed the appeal filed against the People's Democratic Party candidate for the Kogi Central Senatorial District, Natasha Akpoti-Addo. The court, presided by Justice Baturi Kafai, upheld the argument of her counsel and held that the deponents of the affidavits in support of the originating summons, who are not delegates, cannot challenge the delegate election. At the Court of Appeal sitting in Yola, the Adamawa State Capital, Justice Obande Festus has adjourned for hearing the appeal between Jeremy Nyame, INEC, the People's Democratic Party, and 3 others seeking to disregard the Federal High Court decision which upheld the election of Agbo Kefas as the governorship candidate of the PDP in Taraba State for the 2023 general elections. The court adjourned the case to 16th of November for hearing on the appeal. In Kaduna, a federal high court sitting there has nullified the primary election conducted by the People's Democratic Party for the state central senatorial district due to irregularities. The court, presided over by Justice Mohammed Umar, also ordered that a fresh primary be conducted by the party within 14 days. The court ruling followed a suit filed by one of the senatorial aspirants, Ibrahim Usman, who challenged the May 24 primary that produced Lawal Adamu as the winner of the election. In Lagos, the Federal High Court sitting in Ikoyi has ordered the arrest of the Managing Director of the National Airspace Management Authority, Mr. Matthew Wajok, for alleged disobedience to a court order. Justice Babs Kewumi made the order following an application by counsel to the 3rd and 8th defendants, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Lalikon Ojo, at the resumption of a 6.95 billion naira fraud charge filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission against the former NAMA Managing Director, Ibrahim Abdulsalam, and 11 others. And we round off with the report that the Federal High Court of Nigeria has constituted a special task force of judges to swiftly hear and determine all pre-election cases before it. In a circular letter issued by the Honorable Chief Judge of the Court, Justice John Soho, it says it became necessary to designate a team of judges following the large volume of pre-election suits that have flooded the court. Justice Soho further states that the judges will have 4 weeks within which to dispose of the pre-election cases.
And And that's our program for this week. Don't forget that you can find this episode of the program and past episodes on our YouTube channel. I am Shola Sheele. Thank you for watching and see you next week.